I must admit that I have worked with a couple of books about pawn structures, and I can tell you that my game improved. Why do I say that? Because I start to think in terms of which kind of pawn structure is this and how should I play it, instead of trying to memorize move about the opening or things like that. If you start to think in that way, it's really easy to know what to do. And so I would like to offer you another game from this book. The chapter is chapter 2, Hanging Pawns. The game was played between Anton Korobov and Bartłomiej Macieja in Warsaw, 2010. Learning objectives. The hanging pawn structure can be modified after pieces are traded on e5 and white capture with d takes e5. This game is an example of how white's attack is conducted in such situations. So the good thing is this author can give us some examples. We just watch them and eventually try to remember, right? d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4, and by the way, I started also to play Peninsulo-Indian, and so it's kind of interesting. e3, castle. Here I think I played b6 in a game that I'm playing now, a correspondence game. So castle, bishop d3, c5, interesting, knight f3, d5, castle, c takes d4, e takes d4. Here I wouldn't have thought of doing this because you are opening the diagonal for white, so why are you doing it? That's the part I don't understand. So d takes c4, bishop takes c4, knight bd7, bishop d3, b6, a3, bishop takes c3, b takes c3, and bishop b7. Now, here there are no comments to these moves, but what I want to tell you is the following. As you can see, what's important here for you guys and also for me is to know what to do in this pawn structure, right? Because once you know what to do in most pawn structures, you practically know how to play, no? You don't have to remember openings. Rook e1, rook e8, bishop g5, and immediately it plays queen c7, and so this is not pinned anymore. c4, this is the hanging pawn structure that we are studying in this game, and obviously rook a c8. And here there is knight e5, to which the author puts a symbol that shows that white is slightly better. The comment here: after a standard opening, we have reached the position of interest. White's pieces are arranged to create a kingside attack, and black must react carefully. So, what would black play here? It seems there is a possibility to play h6, but in the game he played knight takes e5. Hoopla. And now white has the possibility to change the pawn structure with d takes e5. Here the author put a dubious move. This is a typical structure transformation with hanging pawns. The c4 pawn is weakened, while the kingside attack gains strength. A key factor is who gains the initiative after this change. So he says that instead it was better to play rook takes e5. Okay? So obviously after this move you need to move away the knight, and there is only one place, but this is very, very interesting. Can you imagine? This move is wrong. Can you imagine? Because this is kind of automatic, right? Instead, the correct move is very difficult to find, maybe, because it's this, queen c6. And it's a mess here. Because if you play this, it's checkmate. So what do you play? For example, this could be the move you would play, right? But then there is a problem, because before he had only this square, now he can jump here. And that's kind of super interesting in my opinion. Just to make you an example, here he gives a line showing that, for example, white can play queen e2, but after queen c5, check, bishop e3, knight takes e3, queen takes e3, and bishop a6. Here it says the c4 pawn and the game are probably lost. So let's see why. If he plays queen takes c5, rook takes c5, and he plays this, can play this, I think, right? But then there is probably this. And so yeah, it's true. The c4 pawn is lost. However, obviously, maybe to convert also this game into a win may take time, may take technique. No, that is very important, the technique. So guys, it can be difficult, right? Let me return back to the position. Okay, so this is the position from which we understood black had this Zwischenzug, that is an intermediate move. Instead of playing knight d7, black could play queen c6. So knight d7 is a mistake. Let's see how white gain an advantage in this position. What would you play if you were white? Because this is kind of important. I think it's logical in a sense, because once you are able to dislodge the knight f6, that is one of the protectors of the castle, well, it becomes quite consequential to know what is the next move. The next move is queen h5. Here it says black is already in deep trouble and extreme precision is needed to stay in the game. So in this case it's a problem, because what do you do as black? Generally what you don't want to do is to weaken your castle, but here the author says that the correct move for black was g6. It creates some weaknesses, but is stopping the bishop on d3. Then after queen h6, because there is a threat of checkmate with bishop f6 and queen g7, black should continue with queen c5, because once he plays, for example, bishop f6, you just play queen f8, right? And so there is no checkmate anymore. But obviously white, if you play queen c5, will play rook e3, because the idea is to attack there. I don't know. So it's kind of interesting. Honestly, when I saw the position, I thought of this, but probably this is not really good at all. Black played knight f8, okay, which is considered dubious, because like I told you, g6 for the offer is better. Rook e3, and now of course the threat is to takes bishop, rook h3, and threaten the checkmate on f8, right, on h8. So that's the problem here. And black played queen c6. Queen c6, generally you need to be careful and consider that also the opponent has ideas, because here the checkmate is next, right? So how do you save white from this fate? What would you play if you were white? White played rook g3, and after which there is another little mistake, that is rook c7. I don't know, this rook c7 seems kind of natural, because black wants probably to control g7 or h7, and so he will do something like this, I think. I don't know. Let's see what happens, okay? So if you were white in this position, what would you play? Yeah? Because this is a kind of interesting, I think. Very interesting. Very, very interesting, yeah. So white played this amazing move, bishop takes h7. And it seems black cannot avoid the checkmate. Why? Because after knight takes h7, there is another amazing move by white. What would you play? In the game, white played bishop f6. And of course, here the problem is that if you play g6, he plays queen takes h7, king takes h7, rook h3 check, king g8, rook h8, checkmate. So that's the problem, right? So what do you do here? I don't know. It's interesting. Sorry, I'm thinking because I was thinking knight takes f6, e takes f6, g6 can go, but at that point there is this queen h6 with a checkmate on g7. No, sorry, I don't see really much, and maybe I'm wrong, okay? In the game, black played this, queen takes e4, obviously continue with rook takes g7, king f8, queen h6, rook e c8, and of course I think now you guys can see the last move of the game, because he cannot escape the checkmate, right? The checkmate is rook g8. Why? Because after king takes g8, queen g7 is checkmate. And so we saw another beautiful game which illustrated how the pawn structure change from these two hanging pawns of one on e5, which became a thorn in black's position. And not only a thorn, in reality it became something terrible, because he removed the defense, that was the knight f6, and from that black never really recovered. Thank you very much for watching.